This is a real pleasure. I'll be talking to OH Simon Gibbons, who was there. Tell us a bit more about your illustrious career at Allhallows.
79 to 83, yeah. I unfortunately managed 4 years out of the 5. I didn't turn up until September 79 with alumni such as Michael Busey, who'll probably see this eventually. Hello, Mike. And yeah, had the most amazing 4 years and a HMP Allhallows, which was it was good fun. I'm not saying the academia was as good as it could have been, but hey,
this is like a common theme. But I think what it gave us is something a bit more, didn't it? It gave us a sort of a strength of character.
Yeah, you needed. Well, you were isolated. Yeah, you were in 360 acres of land and a mile and a half of private beach. What an amazing thing to have to grow up. You know, because that's what you did. You effectively grow up from the ages of 14 to 18 in this environment. So you had your best friends and your worst enemies all in this enclave, and it taught you how to deal with people from the higher echelons of the society down to the lower ends of the society. If you want to describe them, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I mean it in a that you've got to deal with people. So you had the people that used to serve you, who had some of the most amazing backstories, and I still remember Tom, who lost his family during the war and wandered the country until he ended up at Allhallows, and yeah, we were really, as kids, you know what kids are like, they're pretty nasty towards themselves and also other people, until one of the masters told us the story of Tom, and he went from here to here, if you want to put it on a scale. But he was an amazing bloke. It was a good education. There we go. Education isn't always about academia.
Absolutely. Yeah. As we know more about that now in terms of education, I work in an independent sector. Yeah. It's very much about the all-round thing. Yeah. I've never met such rounded people, if that makes sense, than people who went to our school. They have a story, which is really interesting, and it's not often you get a lot of schools that can give you a place to thrive. And it was tough as well.
Some of the guys that I were that's in my year at Stanton, like Paolo Cardelli, Adam Winrow, Patrice Bell, Philip Bowers-Tolley, Andy Robson, Ian Reid, who unfortunately got expelled, but that's another story. Steve Potter, who ended up being head of school. It was a fantastic. You don't see them for years. And I don't see Paolo for years and years, and then I bumped into him at the Sanderson up in central London. We had a reconnection, etc. And then we were, I still don't talk to him every so often, but I get a little message from him on Facebook, etc. And I've been in touch with Patrice Bell since we left. I saw Steve Potter a few years ago. I see Al Maltby, but she was obviously in Charlton. It's nice that you can go for such a long time and then
you're back in the room.
Yeah, back in the room. It's like you're almost you never left.
It's like you've never. Yeah. Absolutely. And tell us a bit about when you first started there, going down the drive. Yeah. It's not when you first. You're like, whoa, this is a bit for a 13-year-old. Yeah. It's quite tough.
Well, my parents were living in Borneo, so right. I had Hobson's choice. I had to go somewhere. So I went to King's Taunton, Blundell's, Chiltern Canterlow, and a few others, etc. And I looked at them and went, no. And then the moment I drove down through the gates at Allhallows, past PVGM's house, and I went, I'll go here. I loved it. It was amazing. I'd come out of Randall's school, which is not Randall's, I beg your pardon, a school in Yeovil, which wasn't particularly good. I was classified as a juvenile delinquent, so my mum got me out of there, got me into Allhallows, and I was a right little country bumpkin with the Somerset accent. I soon learned to get rid of that quickly.
That's amazing.
It's an amazing place.
Well, we went to see Mr. Blumen yesterday. You were telling me a little earlier on about
Dolly.
a lovely story. Absolutely, Dolly. Tell us
Dolly,
about.
I apologise, Mr. Blumen, but you are and always will be Dolly to me. His enthusiasm for history, and I remember sitting in the classroom under the archway, etc. And he was slightly lower down. He had this big blackboard, and he would draw these most amazing arrows, and how Napoleon at his Battle of Austerlitz would decimate the opponents. And he was just so enthusiastic. And I remember One of the first times I met him, outside the class, I went to ask him a question, and I went into his room, etc. And he had the most amazing room with books all over the walls, etc. And he was reclining in his chair, and he had a book here, he had a book here. And he had a book in one hand, he had another book in another hand, and a book I'm going to say both legs, but I can't remember where. And he was like, and I said, "Oh, Mr. Blumen, I've got a question, and can you help me?" And he looked at me and he went, Gibbons, third book, top shelf, page 263. No, 264. And I went up and I sort of got this book off the shelf, opened to 264, and I looked at it and I went, my God, what a memory.
A living encyclopedia.
And he was doing this with books. He said, and he was cross-referencing the books. He said, oh yeah. And it was just like, I don't think you appreciate it as a 13-year-old, but as a 57-year-old, you look at it and go, oh my God.
I think you've actually summed it up there really well, that a lot of the things that we saw as just, teachers, you look back and you think, wow, that's really powerful stuff, isn't it? They were incredible people.
I mean, and all of my teachers, Marpug, Preston, who lost a tank battalion, but I don't know whether that's true or not, but it was funny, Chippy, who was our Henley Smith, who sadly left when we got to the fifth form, I think it was, through, I can't remember why, but there was something, I think he let kids loose with chainsaws and petrol, and it wasn't a good ending. And, we had Cool Keith, who used to go, kill the lights, it was just,
Keith Moore.
Keith
Moore, of course. I'm really hoping, if Keith is watching this, I'm hoping Mr. Moore is going to come and talk to us, because I really would love that.
Well, I sent an email. No, Andy Robson sent an email to Keith and got a reply. I sent an email to Keith. I wasn't his favourite.
Last time I saw Keith actually was we went and played. I took my friends over to go and play tennis one summer. It was a summer before it closed, and saw him. Legendary, great guy. I was another little story going into the geology lab, and I'm pretty sure this is true. On the wall they had various things that you could go and look at, and one of them was asbestos, and it was blue asbestos, the worst kind. You know, I mean, just put it on the wall, be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we grew up with. Brilliant. No.
Yeah, but he was quite into athletics, and he one year he turned up with a load of shoes that he told us he co-developed with another running brand about running, spikes.
Yes.
And we all bought a pair of these spikes. I reckon he's on commission myself, but that's another matter. And we all had these spikes, etc. That one of our teachers was co-developing it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was good. Jock. I think the real reason. Well, obviously, once obviously you pay your bills, you go to, but Jock still had to accept you, and that was the old headmaster. And he was a fabulous. We were talking earlier about headmasters nowadays are much more bean crunchers,
absolutely,
and corporate mentality. Whereas he was a proper headmaster, and he sat down. We had an interview, etc. And obviously he liked what he saw, and which is to my great for me. So I ended up going to Allhallows. But I remember Andy Robson and I, who I still see, who lives in Swanage, which is outside Swanage. We took his clinker-built boat, and he had a beautiful old 20-foot sailing boat, etc. It had seen better days. And Andy Robson and I, over a period of about 8 or 9 weekends, etc., we stripped it down to its bare wood. We completely red-leaded the inside so it protected the wood, and we completely varnished the outside with about 8 or 9 coats, etc. Converted his boat from basically scrap wood, firewood, and to this beautiful sailing boat. Even though I say so myself, it really was good. And then about a week later, the old post box used to get in the stand just outside his study. And I opened it up, and there was a letter for Andy and I. I had one, and Andy had one. And I went, oh, the hell's this? So I opened up my letter, and I've got the letter to this day sitting on my mantelpiece. And it said, "Dear Simon, thank you very much indeed for the work you did on my boat. I hope the attach or the enclosed is adequate." And it was 20 brand spanking new £1 notes, and yours, Jock. Oh shit! Wow. He knows we call him Jock. What?
That's proper.
And I've got the letter to this day, etc. And I wish I kept one of the pound notes. I did. I spent it down the tuck shop.
Yeah.
But to this day, there was a real appreciation to what Andy and I, and we worked hard.
Yeah.
Andy and I were in the Newman's. Carpentry, and we were the only kids that were given the keys to the carpentry shop. because I made chessboards, I made beds, I made cabinets, and all that sort of stuff. Wow! And he gave us the keys. We were in there with these machines that would chop your limbs off.
And no one worried. I think that's again what made you
trusted. They trusted you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's if you give a kid trust, and he said, if you make a mess of it, he's only able to do it once.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what it is, and that's kind of what I've given to my son. I said, look, there you go. Knock yourself out, etc. But if you get caught or you do something stupid, you've got to suffer the consequences.
Wow. And I think those are the things, the little things as well, that made it such a great experience, because you were in 360 acres on your own with a great group of people.
3 o'clock in the morning was Pat and I, Patrice and I. We snuck out one day. It was a beautiful storm, and I'd say the wind was howling, trees were bending everywhere, and we decided we'd sneak out. So it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, chucking a hoolie, and so we go halfway up the drive past the two copses, etc. We got to just before the first rugby pitch on the right hand side. And there was this like creaking sound. I said, "Well, Pat, what the hell's that?" Well, we were huddled together, and this creaking sound, and then all of a sudden, this mighty pine crashed to one side of us. I went, "Fucking shit!" Excuse my language. Sorry, hell of it. We went, "Jesus Christ!" And then the other one did exactly the same. So if you go past, as you go to the, as you're coming down the driveway on the left-hand side, you've got the old first pitch, where you still see the stumps of the two trees. That to this day, we were there standing there.
When you saw it,
we legged it. Oh no, it's dangerous. It was a danger, Will Robinson.
Was there lots of running up to? Was it the shrubbery? Did you have the going up to the shop up there, or was it there then?
No, we didn't get up there. We used to go to Lyme Regis or Seaton.
You had to go Lyme, yeah.
Rich Snow, who I haven't seen since for a long time. He was a bird twitcher. So, but he was also a little sneaky bastard, because what he would do is everybody trusted him. It was like this innocent little guy, etc. Unbeknown to all the masters, in the back of his little bike, he had his little basket, and he'd go down and fill it up with vodka and gin, etc.
The quiet ones.
Yeah, quiet ones. And I go, "Hello, Richard. Hello, sir. Out bird twitching today, are you?" Yeah. Ka-chink, ka-chink, ka-chink.
Yeah. You see, my experience was I remember turning up there, and in my prep school, you had to be given a briefcase. Why you were ever given a briefcase, I have no idea.
Back in the day, it was the right thing.
They didn't care. But when I got to Allhallows, I was crucified over this briefcase. I lasted. They literally changed. It had one of those changeable ones, and everyone was changing their coats, so I couldn't get in. And I think he got us thrown up on the top of Lily's building, which was the sixth form, but then Lily's and all these things, and just think, So the third form was tough, right?
I wasn't in the third form. I came in the remove.
Oh right.
So I missed the third form.
You missed the third. So the third form, I remember being very tough. The sixth form were very tough with cloaks on, and everyone was a bit brutal.
There was so we joined in 70. I joined in 79. So we're right at the end of fagging. Because the sixth form used to go outside the room and go fag, etc. Here's a confession for you. Because I was a bit of a gobby kid, so I would had to do duty making the sixth one was toast. And in Stanton, you go through the main corridor of Stanton, you turn right, and you got the back staircase. And next to the back staircase was the kitchen, the kitchenette. And next to all that was a guy called Sean Cahoon's room. Sorry, Sean. Anyway, he used to make me make toast. Down the stairs was the urinals. So I used to take the bread, you go downstairs into the urinals, wipe the bread on the urinals, bring it back upstairs again, and put it into the toast rack, and toast it. I give them all this toast and said, "There you go." And so
proper Allhallows.
Sorry,
so good.
I said, "Well, hang on a second. They're taking up my playtime,
right. Outrageous.
So I've literally, and I would sit there and watch them eat the toast that I was rubbing on the urinal.
If only as third formers we'd been told this kind of information, we would have done that.
Oh God,
totally.
I'd have probably had the shit kicked out of me if they'd have found out, but they never found out, so I just carried on doing it. I'd be sitting there going, "Little bastards! How dare you? How dare you take my time up?"
Amazing. That's a perfect story, I think, to sort of go on to your time towards the end of your time at Allhallows. How did you feel about it? What was your...
It came to an end because I was living in Borneo, but I had to fly to Singapore, and the flights out to Singapore were such that I'd organised the end of term party. I'd organised all the beer and all the barrels of beer, etc., that I got from a local brewery, etc. We'd all rolled it into, and unfortunately I wasn't there for the party because I had to leave the day earlier. Anyway, what I found out subsequently was that Dumbo Dave, bless him, I think he's left us now, a little bugger had caught these two kids rolling these barrels of beer down into the courtyard, and he said, well, you're not allowed that, and bloody smashed them and emptied them. So they weren't actually allowed the beer that I'd organised from the brewery. We were all over 18, but then when you look at the rule book, it said even though you may be over 18, you have to adhere to all the rules. And I think he's got a bit excitable, but
yeah, of course there was all the rule books. There was the calendars. I've still got loads of calendars at home.
Yeah, I haven't got any calendars. I've got my old tuck box.
You got a tuck box?
I got a tuck box and a trunk. So I got that. The tuck box is anyway, it's 45 years old now. Things seen better days.
Yeah.
But I got the trunk, and in the trunk I've got the blankets. I got my old cricket boots, even though I never played cricket for very long. My cricket career lasted about half an hour. I've got one of my old hockey sticks I used to cover in insulating tape. But I was never any good at hockey. That was Marcus Ballin was the hockey player.
And of course that would have been all on the Alpa.
Yes,
down on the if you fell over on that, you knew about it. You'd be picking them out for days afterwards.
Exactly.
It was great to see it yesterday. Actually, very different these days though.
It's a market garden or something now, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was. I have memory. That's the wall garden, and waiting on it because we do lessons on a Saturday morning, and then games and matches in the afternoon.
Now, what was his name? Kit Kat.
Yeah.
Right, Kit Kat. We end of one term, so it's the end of the summer term, and we were listening to Othello or King Lear or whatever it was on his prized tapes, and he had the 8 of these tapes, etc. And he left them in there, and anyway he got called away briefly. So we thought, end of the summer term, nobody's going to remember it. So over the end of this one particular scene, we recorded a raspberry. Right? So you press around on this thing, childish, it's funny. Anyway, so we all forgot about it. Came back the next year, so it's the beginning of a new year. Got to finish the curriculum for the whatever exam we were having. Anyway, so he said, well, we'll go back a couple of scenes. We'd all forgotten about it. So anyway, he played this thing, and it was a really intense. In the moment, Shakespeare. I can't remember what it was, Lear or Othello. I can't remember. Anyway, so he gets that, and Kit Kat was sitting there. Oh yes, this is great. And right at the end, this massive raspberry. Of course, we all remembered. Went, oh shit! No, yes, he was. To his credit, he actually laughed. He said, because we didn't ruin the actual tape. We just recorded over the end of it. Yeah. So he was, he was a miserable bugger. He hated sports.
Right.
Because he had his lessons, English lesson. It was really important.
It's all about the English.
But if we were playing rugby, etc., we had to go to West Buckland or Chebier or wherever it was, he would literally sit there and he would watch the second hand go round. You're allowed to leave at 12:30. I suppose I've got to let the rugby team go. He hated it.
Yeah.
But I remember him because he was enthusiastic, even though he was a miserable bastard.
Absolutely. Sometimes that's the best. You do remember people. Just on that note as well, when we got to the end of term, particularly the end of the summer, so you're coming to the end of the year, did any of the sixth form do some really crazy stuff? Because in the 90s, they were doing things like setting up classrooms in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
That was a great one. The whole, including the projector. I mean,
they did well. I can't actually remember what we did, but there was a few years before us, somebody had painted OH on the tarmac outside Graves Morris's house.
Wow.
Yeah, so they put this big OH outside. That was there for years and years and years. They must have tarmacked over it by now.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Well, I was looking because I think certainly in one of the years when I think it was Andy John who sadly died while I was at the school.
Yeah.
But Andy John and the sixth form then did dinosaur prints up the drive, and they did about sort of 10, 15 of them. Yeah. And I know how angry everyone was because it was. And I always remember Mr. Moore having to bring out the fire truck to sort of get rid of it, like by sandblasting it almost.
Well, I suppose the school had to portray itself as an educational school, and pranks like that were just bad.
Just like
the best one, and I wasn't around for it, but one guy had stolen over the course of the term. They'd stolen all of these cones, right? So they'd stolen all these police cones, etc. One here, one there, etc. They'd amassed quite a significant amount of them. Yep. One morning, they went out to the outside Roosden, and they put these cones out, directed all the traffic through down the drive. So we had these caravans all trying to go down through and out through, because you can go through and out. You used to be able to go out through Chalet, but some of the caravans were too big. So they got as far as Shallow, and there was a gridlock. Had you ever tried reversing a caravan?
Oh, that way.
The police were not very happy.
No, I bet.
Allegedly. I wasn't there, but
do you know, again, years later, the Strands again, because in my last few years there, I know a number of people will remember this one, that road signs became a big thing, and everyone started stealing local road signs, and they brought them all back, and I think a lot of day people were involved. I'm not going to name anybody, but they all ended up,
statute of limitations, surely.
Seb Warner won't mind naming, and a
Yeah.
few other people, and they all ended up in Lily's house in my room, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, what happened? It all came to a head because one of the things that they stole was the Allhallows sign.
Oh, right, okay.
They got that out, and they didn't know what to do with it. Couldn't put it in anywhere. It's too obvious. So they threw it into the sea, off the undercliff. Out it went, thinking they'd never see it again. It washed up here in Lyme. So in Lyme, and I think that's when the police got involved. I thought, these kind of things have been going on.
The trouble. Get the police involved, slap your wrist, don't do it again, etc. Don't take. It is just a childish prank, and yes, they are childish. But looking back, they're funny.
They are.
I wish I'd been there for when the hour and a half of the codes directed all the traffic through the school. That to me was a pièce de resistance.
But what I think was lovely as well is I think we were all learning things while these you can learn from all this stuff. It's ingenuity, it's clever, it's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
And it gives
Nobody
you confidence. Nobody got hurt.
Nobody got hurt, and I think that's the key point. Don't get
Absolutely, and it gives you again. I hear it's constantly over the old Hornetonians, Allhallows, the confidence.
Yeah.
That people had a lot of confidence. Yeah, they were bold.
Pranking people. That's what it's like.
Bold.
Yeah, life is out there to have some fun, and don't take it too seriously because you're only on this planet for 85 years if you're lucky. And I've had 57, so I got how many ever left. I did. Obviously, I was never good at maths. Whatever that is, 20 odd left. I think it's school, or certainly Allhallows School, and I tried to get my son to understand it. Schools aren't just about academia. It's about learning how to learn how to deal with people, how to learn how to mix in. So you're mixing with people that are here and intellectually, and And I said to, I've never looked at any of my son's results. All I've looked is effort, because I just put my hand over the results. Because, I didn't get a particularly huge amount of results, and I'd look at the effort. And as long as the efforts were in the 1, 2s, or 3s, 3s were where you should be, 2s are above, and then 1s where they like. And as long as they were 1, 2, or 3, I was good. And I got down to religious education, and he had a 4. And okay, Cam, we're not religious people. I'm not going to start preaching. But if you don't learn, how can you have a debate with somebody? How can you discuss something? I understand the Bible. I never read it cover to cover because I didn't see the point. But if you had an understanding, you could actually debate it with somebody. And I think that's key.
Clever,
You've got to be able to stand your ground and say, I don't believe in this because of X, Y, and Z.
And that's what Allhallows taught us. Absolutely, in spades. Because you didn't always have to read the book, but you had to have an understanding of it.
You have to have an understanding, and I think and I still live by it today. Better to beg forgiveness than ask permission.
Always, always, And
Martin, I think, will actually testify to that with the lady from the committee.
Yes,
because he rang her up and said, "Can we?" And she said, "No."
And then you just got to work around things.
Well, but then we turned up and she went mental. And I was like, I'm not getting involved with this one.
No is never an answer. We work with it,
No, in my opinion, when somebody says no, I just haven't given them enough information to say yes.
Absolutely, and that's the key thing again. And I think these are all things. And I just think it's just wonderful because I can't believe it's 25 years.
I know.
Where were you when you heard?
Where was I? 98, 99, 98. I was probably... I've actually still got the prospectus. I'm just trying to think where, because I remember asking the moment I heard it was going to be converted into a sort of residential. I thought, what an amazing place, etc. And Stanton with the Great Hall, 17,000 square feet, etc. 400,000. But back in '98, that was
that's a lot of money.
Cash,
it was.
So I actually can't remember where I was. I was probably sitting at my desk, etc. But
it was a shame. It was a shame. I think my mum received a letter from Mr. Blumen actually saying about they were probably asking for money about books or something, because I'd only just left the previous year. But yeah, it was a real shame, and it was. I don't think 25 years later, it hits me now probably stronger than it did back then. I was like, oh dear, then, and now I'm like, oh, it's such a shame.
Yeah, because you have nostalgia. Now, when you're there, a year afterwards, etc. I mean, my year was, I think, the last year before they put a limit on the age that you could play the school rugby team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were. I remember a guy called Rob Northard, who was the size of a house, but still big but fit in those days, and he came to play against the school list, and he was 3 or 4 stone heavier than the heaviest prop. He was just batting them out of the way, etc. And I think so they put an age limit, I think, of 21.
Right.
That you could play the school then, and we used to play against the Masters.
Wow.
One of the Masters games, and Chippy, who was Henley Smith, had a big old Jesus beard, etc. And at the bottom of the ruck, when nobody's looking, you go, just like, because he was a northerner. Yeah, get off my beard. Oh, sorry, say there. did I just have your beard in my hand?
I'll never forget. It would have been sort of the autumn term '93, and we were told to get out on the rugby pitch, and I was not a rugby player. Yeah. And they said, just what you got to do is get yourself muddy, run along, and just basically slide along. So the afternoon, I'm a day pupil. I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to get clean to get back on the bus? But it was that was the mentality. Get yourself muddy, let's get on with it. Come on,
it was good. I mean, I go back. I've been back a couple of times down to the school, and I've taken my girlfriend to see the place, and she said, she's from Manchester, and she said, well, we didn't have anything like this. And I said, well, I wouldn't have if my parents hadn't lived in Borneo or Singapore, and then Saudi and Bahrain and all over the place. So I was, so I would go and stay, with Chris Heighton's parents down in Over Stratton, Andy Robson's parents down in Waddock Cross, just outside Dorchester, Pat's play, Pat Bell. It was because I had to go somewhere. I couldn't go home for I couldn't go back to Borneo for the weekend. It was what a long flight.
An Exeat for over there.
Where were you? I was in the jungle yesterday.
Have you got still your tie? Have you still got anything?
No, I haven't.
You haven't. You got that.
That's another thing, right? Mr. Moore, when you'll see you, if you ever see this, Andy Robson and I never got our house colours.
Oh, for goodness sake.
No, to this day, bothers me. I trained for about 4 months to do the cross country, because the cross country at Allhallows was the worst.
Yes, it was.
Up and down that cliff.
Yeah, horrendous.
I trained every morning. I was up running and doing this for 4 months. So we did the whole school cross country. Right? I came 4th behind the likes of Paul Zeeley, who was an amazing cross country player. There was another guy, Ben Beasley, I think he was a cross country player. Pete Mayo, who I reconnected with a while back, and I came 4th. And the first thing that Keith Moore said to me, "Where did you cheat?" Mr. Moore.
Come on, that's not.
And I said, I know I might have a bad rep, but and it was to the credit of Pete and Ben. He came over to Mr. Moore and said, no, you didn't treat, sir. He was literally on our tail the whole way out. So I came 4th out of the whole 300 pupils.
Amazing.
Did I get my house colours?
So we need to get these reprinted.
No, you missed the question. Did I get my house colours? No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
Not that it bothers me at 57.
I think we need to get some printed, actually. We need to get some ties printed for that, because we only do the shield one and then the coloured one. So house ones would be good. No, I don't think I ever got any house colours at all. Isn't that bad? I don't think I ever did.
Chris Heighton, the worst offender on the planet.
Chris.
He got more ties than I got, and that was the first thing. Second thing was he was made head of house, right? And I was the one. It's Simon, I can't accept responsibility for that. Can you accept responsibility for it? No. I've already got a bad enough reputation as it is. And the one was one of the things that Chris and I got caught doing. I can't remember what it was we got. And the punishment was to fill these blue barrels with water. And so we got these big blue barrels. I said, blue barrel full of water must be just one of those tasks that you get us to do. So the RISM said, right, gave us these blue barrels, and he said, right, go and fill them with water. So we went, let's go in the swimming pool. So we literally jumped over this special swim, filled these blue barrels up, hoofed these things, they're bloody heavy, these things, so hoofed them back over, plonked them outside, and thought nothing of it, put the lid back on, thought nothing of it. That weekend, those blue barrels were the drinking water to go to the 10 tours.
So it went down the pool.
So we said to all the kids, don't drink the water. Don't drink the water. And Dumbo Dave was mixing the water with his whiskey in his
amazing.
And he was like sipping it. We like to think that he went to hospital. I don't know whether he did
maybe
or not.
he did, yeah.
But that's what killed him. Maybe.
The pool water.
Or the
Oh,
pool,
no.
the chlorinated pill water. It stank, you know.
Oh, no.
So we got, I got rustic. Well, Chris and I got rusticated. Chris, I remember Chris's mum, Judy, bless her. She turned up, and because I've known Goody for 4 years, etc., and I always used to bound in there.
Yeah.
And so I come outside, and there's Judy like standing her hands up. Hi, Judy. And, hello, Simon. Christopher, get in the car. And he was, we were not there. You know, she was angry as hell.
You've proved your point again. Though Allhallows is about ingenuity, thinking outside the box. Pool water. That's what you got to do.
See, that's the whole point. If you don't think outside the box, etc., and you do what everybody else does,
don't do that.
No.
That's what it taught us. There you go. So wow. Well, honestly, thank you so much.
My
it is
pleasure.
an absolute pleasure. Where have you travelled from?
West Parley, which is over near Bournemouth.
Oh, so you're not? It'd be great to talk to you again. I know in our 25th anniversmuch, but this is amazing. Thank you so much.
for your time.
Simon, it's great to speak to you. Pleasure. It really is. Top man.